The Viro-Lords didn't believe in the sanctity of form. To them, the universe was merely raw material, a sprawling, unoptimized pile of carbon and protein waiting to be rewritten by their superior viral code. When their living hive ships first descended into our atmosphere, they didn't fire lasers or drop kinetic rods. They released the dissolution, a microscopic swarm of airborne retroviruses that targeted the very blueprints of human life. We watched in paralyzed horror as our frontline infantries didn't just die, they unraveled. Soldiers' bones turned to jelly, their skin sloughed off to reveal a screaming, formless biomass that the Viro-Lords then harvested to build their towers. They looked at humanity and saw a weak, static species, a biological evolutionary dead end that couldn't handle a simple change in its own genetic script. They thought that because we were natural, we were stagnant. They assumed that because we relied on technology to shield our bodies themselves were defenseless. They were catastrophically wrong. They forgot that the human genome is a 3-billion-year-old record of survival against every plague, every predator, and every extinction event the Earth could throw at us. We weren't just a species, we were the survivors of a million-year-long war. We created the Ares strain. And we created the first evolutionary strike force, the Mutation-Kings. We don't wear power armor. We don't carry rifles that run on batteries. We are the weapon. Before we drop into the meat grinder of a Viro-Lord hive, we inject the instagene, a hyper-aggressive, synthetic mutagen that unlocks the dormant apex code in our DNA. It turns our metabolism into a fusion reactor and our evolution into a high-speed rail. We don't wait for 1,000 generations to adapt to a threat. We do it in 10 seconds. If the enemy sprays acid, we grow silicon skin. If they try to melt our bones, we turn our skeletons into organic steel. We are the genetic berserkers, and we are about to out-evolve the masters of biology. I am Sergeant Elias Bonebreaker Vance. My heart rate is currently 400 beats per minute, and my blood is 40% adrenaline. And I am about to tear this hive apart from the inside. The mission was a suicidal breach into the nerve center of the Ethel Hive, a living starship the size of a city hovering over the ruins of Rio de Janeiro. The ship wasn't made of metal, it was made of pulsing muscle, weeping pores, and a collective intelligence that wanted to turn our world into a puddle of gray sludge. All units, prime the serums. Break the locks. I roared. My voice was already starting to deepen, my vocal cords thickening into something more primal, more guttural. Berserker 2 Sarah. Serum injected. I can feel my ribs cracking. Elias. It feels glorious. Berserker 3 Kale. Skin is hardening. Visuals shifting to infrared. I see the heat of the hive core. We didn't use a drop pod. We used a meat borer, a living organism we engineered to slam into the hive ship's exterior and die, leaving a hole for us to scramble through. We hit the ship's primary flank with a sound like a wet slap against a mountain. I stepped out into a corridor of pulsing, purple flesh. The air was a thick, green fog of neurotoxins and viral spores. Immediately, the Viro-Lords' immune guard swarmed us. They were 10-foot-tall horrors with sides of hardened cartilage for arms and translucent skin that revealed their churning, acidic organs. They didn't growl, they hissed with the sound of 1,000 needles. They're trying to dissolve us. Evolve now. I felt the instagene hit my primary arteries. It was like someone had poured liquid fire into my veins. I fell to my knees, screaming as my body began to rewrite itself in real time. My skeleton didn't just grow, it shattered and reformed, my radius and ulna fusing into a single, unbreakable pillar of bone. From my forearms, 2 jagged, white blades of high-density calcium erupted, tearing through my skin. My skin didn't stay soft, it thickened into a matte black chitinous plate, a natural armor that could deflect high-velocity projectiles. The Viro-Lord guard lunged, swinging its scythe at my neck. I didn't move my head. I didn't need to. My newly formed neck muscles caught the blow, the alien's blade bouncing off my hardened chitin. I looked the monster in its many eyes, my own vision now a high-contrast orange heat map. My turn, I hissed. I swung my bone blade. It didn't just cut, it sheared through the alien's flesh like a hot wire through wax. I followed up with a punch that carried the force of a hydraulic press. My knuckles, now reinforced with diamond-hard knobs of bone, crushed the creature's primary nerve cluster. It collapsed into a heap of twitching, useless meat. Sarah. Cal. On me. We're heading for the heart valve. We ran through the pulsing corridors. We didn't run like humans, we ran like predators. Every step was a 30-foot leap, our muscles storing and releasing kinetic energy with 100% efficiency. Sarah had evolved long, prehensile tentacles from her back, tipped with organic stingers that injected our own countervirus into the hive walls. Kale's skin had turned a translucent blue, allowing him to absorb the hive's bioluminescent energy to power his own accelerated healing. The hive fought back. The walls grew teeth. The ceiling dripped digestive enzymes. A massive sphincter gate slammed shut in front of us, blocking our path to the core. "It's too thick. We can't cut through," Kale shouted. "Then we melt it." I focused my will. The instagene responded to my desire for destruction. I felt a burning sensation in my stomach, a chemical reaction that would have killed a normal man. I leaned back and vomited, not blood but a concentrated stream of hyperacidic bile. The green liquid hit the sphincter gate, hissing and bubbling as it ate through the alien tissue in seconds. We burst into the heart valve. In the center of the chamber stood the Viro-Lord Prime. It was a masterpiece of biological arrogance. 15 feet of iridescent flesh, with a head that was nothing but a massive, exposed brain pulsing with violet light. It raised its hand and a wave of concentrated genetic command hit us. I felt my DNA scream. The Prime was trying to force my cells to commit suicide. My skin began to bubble, my bone blades starting to soften and turn back into calcium mush. "Neil," the Prime's voice echoed in my very cells. "Return to the sludge. Your blueprint is mine." "No," I roared, the sound echoing through the organic chamber. I didn't fight with technology. I fought with the 3 billion years of stubbornness encoded in my marrow. I forced my cells to reject the command. I didn't just resist, I counter-evolved. My body, sensing the extreme threat, went into apex overdrive. My skin didn't just harden. It turned into a reflective, mirror-like scale that bounced the Prime's viral frequencies back at him. My bone blades grew twice their length, vibrating at a frequency that matched the hive's own heartbeat. I was no longer a human trying to be a monster. I was the monster the universe had been afraid of since the first cell divided. I charged. The Prime lashed out with its tentacles, but I was a blur of black and white fury. I sliced through the tentacles, the acid blood spraying across my chest and only making my armor harder. I reached the Prime, my feet digging into the pulsing floor. I grabbed the Prime by its glowing violet head. "You wanted our code?" I rasped, my throat now a cavern of reinforced cartilage. "Here is the final command." I drove my bone blades directly into the Prime's exposed brain. But I didn't just cut. I released the apex trigger, the final stage of the instagene. I forced my own rapidly mutating cells to flood into the Prime's nervous system. It was a viral counter-invasion. My cells, aggressive and unstoppable, began to eat the Prime from the inside out, rewriting his code with the message of human dominance. The Prime shrieked, a sound that was felt by every living thing in the hive. The iridescent skin turned gray. The violet light died. The collective intelligence of the starship shattered as its master's brain was turned into a slurry of human-engineered cancer. The ship began to die. The walls lost their tension, the floor becoming a slippery, rotting mass of decaying protein. "Command, the Prime is down. The hive is undergoing systemic collapse. We're coming out." We didn't wait for an exit. We used our bone blades to carve our way through the ship's hull, leaping from the dying Leviathan into the open sky of Rio. We fell for thousands of feet, our bodies sensing the impact and growing massive, parachute-like membranes of skin between our arms and torsos to slow our descent. We hit the ground not as broken men but as gods of the new evolution. The Ethel hive crashed into the ocean, a 5-mile-long carcass of rotting meat that would feed the fish for a century. The Viro-Lords and the other ships, seeing their Prime outfought and out-evolved by the very sludge they tried to harvest, turned their ships and fled back into the void. They realized that the human genome wasn't a resource, it was a trap. I stood on the beach, my bone blades slowly retracting back into my arms, my chitinous armor flaking off as my body returned to its resting state. I was exhausted, every cell in my body screaming for nutrients, but I was alive. And I was human. Humanity has proven the ultimate truth of the apex retribution. You can bring your viruses. You can bring your genetic rewrites. You can try to turn us into raw material for your towers. But we are the species that survived the ice, the fire, and the plague. We are the ones who don't just adapt to the environment, we make the environment fear us. We are the Mutation-Kings. We are the genetic berserkers. And we are the apex of the evolutionary ladder. The hive is dead. The sky is ours. Rio is free. The mission is complete. Now, someone get me a 5,000-calorie steak. I'm starving.